Okay, hi Wesley and Elsa. This time, this is not a kid story. This is a grown-up story, but there's a very short selection here that I thought you would find exciting, so I thought I would read it to you. This is a unique book because this was the first man to ever sail around the world single-handed, and when he came home, he wrote this book called Sailing Alone Around the World. And what also made him very unique was that he built or restored this boat from almost scratch. And this is, while that boat is long gone, this is a replica of it that was built years afterward. And this boat is called the Spray. Sailing Alone Around the World. Now, this is Captain Joshua Slocum. And he was the person who did this, and it took him a few years to go all the way around the world, and he did it all by himself. There's no one else on the boat with him. Well, almost no one else on the boat with him. That's what the story's going to tell us. And this is the map of the world from back then. And if you look at the squiggly lines here, this is the route he took all the way across the world, sailing alone in a boat. And it was about 32 foot long. And this is a picture of it. As he originally found it, an old sea captain said that he would give him the boat if he wanted to, because he had come home from a voyage. And this is the Spray while he was working on it still, putting it together. Here's a little drawing of the yard where he put it together. And the story we're going to tell takes place, and this is an actual picture of the Spray in the water as it was coming home from his first complete journey around the world, and a lot of times that's called a circumnavigation. Now, to keep up with the story, we're probably going to have to learn some sailboat terms. People who sail use a lot of words that aren't used in a lot of other situations. But let's start. It's going to start as he was passing the island of Pico, and while he was there, when he was fixing the rigging on the boat, and rigging is, and there's the island of Pico, rigging is what they call a general term for sails and ropes and the other stuff that goes on the boat. And he had been through an incident that messed up his boat some, so he had to fix it. And let's start from there. Passing the island of Pico after the rigging was mended, the Spray stretched across to leeward of the island of St. Michael's. The leeward side of an island is the island that gets the least wind. The windward side would be the side of the island that the wind blows most on, which she was up with early on the morning of July 26th, the wind blowing hard. Later in the day, she passed the Prince of Monaco's fine steam-bound yacht to Fayal, where on a previous voyage, the prince had slipped his cables to escape a reception, which the padres of the island wished to give him. Why he so dreaded the ovation, I could not make out. At Horta, they did not know. Since reaching the islands, I had lived most luxuriously on fresh bread, butter, vegetables, and fruits of all kinds. One thing about a voyage, when you take a voyage like that, you have to plan very carefully about where you're going to get food and how long it'll last on your boat. I also had a pico white cheese that General Manning, the American Consul General, had given me. Alas, by nighttime I was doubled up with cramps. He had eaten bad plums, and they had given him a very bad stomach ache, or what they call cramps, and what can sometimes give you delirium, which means that it can make you see things, but you get so sick. The wind, which was already a smart breeze, was increasing somewhat, with a heavy sky to the southwest. Reefs had been turned out, and I must turn them in again somehow. Reefing a sail means shortening, tying it down and shortening it so that the wind doesn't hit it as hard and doesn't create as much force. Between cramps, I got the mainsail down. And this is the Pinta a replica of it from Christopher Columbus's time. And here's a picture of Christopher Columbus. Mainsail and hold jib instead and set her on her course. The course is the direction that the boat is going in. Then I went below and threw myself upon the cabin floor in great pain. How long I lay there I could not tell for I became delirious. In other words, he's seeing things, he's so sick. When I came to, as I thought, from my swoon is when you faint or pass out, I realized that the sloop was plunging into a heavy sea, and looking out of the companionway, to my amazement, I saw a tall man at the helm. The helm is where you stand to steer the boat and hold the steering wheel. His rigid hand, grasping the spokes of the wheel, held them as in a vise. One may imagine my astonishment. His rig was that of a foreign sailor, and the large red cap he wore was cock-billed over his left ear, and all was set off with shaggy black whiskers or a beard. He would have been taken for a pirate in any part of the world. While I gazed upon his threatening aspect, I forgot the storm, and wondered if he had come to cut my throat. This he seemed to know. "Signor," he said, doffing his cap, "I have come to do you no harm." And a smile, the faintest in the world, but still a smile, played on his face, which seemed not unkind when he spoke. "I have come to do you no harm. I have sailed free," he said, "but was never worse than a contrabandista. I am one of Columbus's crew," he continued. "I am the pilot of the Pinta, come to aid you. Lie quiet, Senor Captain," he added, "and I will guide your ship tonight. You have a calentura, but you will be all right tomorrow." A calentura is a very high fever and sickness that will make you see things. I thought what a very devil he was to carry sail. Again, as if he read my mind, he exclaimed, "Yonder is the Pinta ahead. We must overtake her. Give her sail, give her sail! Vale, vale, muy rayo!" Biting off a large quid of black twist, he said, "You did wrong, Captain, to mix cheese with plums. White cheese is never safe unless you know whence it comes." "Avast there," I cried. "I have no mind for moralizing." I made shift to spread a mattress and lie on that instead of the hard floor, my eyes all the while fastened on my strange guest, who, remarking again that I would have only pains and calentura, chuckled as he chanted a wild song. "High are the waves, fierce and gleaming, high as the tempest roar, high as the seabird screaming, high the Azor." I suppose I was now getting better, for I was peevish and complained, "I detest your jingle. Your Azor should be at roost." Oop. Would it have hit heaven? There's a picture of what a storm at sea can be like in a boat. I begged he would tie a rope yarn on the rest of the song, if there was any more in it. I was still in agony. Great seas were boarding the spray, but in my fevered brain I thought there were boats falling on my deck, that careless draymen were throwing from wagons on the pier to which I imagined the spray was moored, and without fenders to breast her off. "You'll smash your boats," I called out again and again as the seas crashed on the cabin over my head. "You'll smash your boats, but you can't hurt the spray. She is strong," I cried. I found when my pains and calentura had gone that the deck, now white as a shark's tooth from seas washing over it, had been swept of everything movable. To my astonishment, I saw now at broad day that the spray was still heading as I had left her. That means she was still going in the same direction, and was going like a racehorse. Columbus himself could not have held her more exactly on course. The sloop had made 90 miles in the night through a rough sea. They call it a sloop because that's the type of boat it was. The sloop had made 90 miles in the night through a rough sea. I felt grateful to the old pilot, but I marveled some that he had not taken in the jib. That means the front sail on the boat. The gale was moderating, and by noon the sun was shining. A meridian altitude and the distance on the patent log, which I always kept towing, told me that she had made a true course throughout the 24 hours. I was getting much better now, but was very weak, and did not turn out reefs that day or the night following, although the wind felt light. But I just put all my wet clothes out in the sun when it was shining, and lying down there myself, fell asleep. Then who should visit me again but my old friend of the night before? This time, of course, in a dream. "You did well last night to take my advice," said he. "And if you would, I should like to be with you often on the voyage, for the love of adventure alone." Finishing what he had to say, he again doffed his cap and disappeared as mysteriously as he came, returning, I suppose, to the Phantom Pinta. I awoke much refreshed, with the feeling that I had been in the presence of a friend and a seaman of vast experience. I gathered up my clothes, which by this time were dry. Then by inspiration, I threw overboard all the plums in the vessel. So sometimes people believe that ghosts can not just come to scare people, but to help people. And at least that's what Captain Slocum thought as he was sailing alone around the world. Okay, talk to you later. Love you. Bye.